All right, we are live, guys. We have a special guest today, um, Mr. Andre Gower, but we will get to him last, and he'll tell you what he's been up to. We got the usual suspects. We got Mr. Greco, fabulous.
I
What's
thought I
going
was
on,
a
dude?
special guest. I thought I was a special guest this week.
You're always a special guest,
Thank you. That's why I come here for this reinforcement.
man. And then to his right, we have Mr. Ed from Ed's Retro Geek Out. What's up, dude?
Hey guys, what's up? Yeah, doing fine. It's an hour earlier because we messed up in Europe and we haven't changed the clock yet.
You forgot to spring forward?
I I, I have no clue what's happening, but I was like, hey, what's happening with this hour? But it's all good, man. It's all
Does
good.
Belgium do that?
I hope so. I'm anticipating it.
Wait, they do it at a different time?
What?
You guys do different daylight saving time at a different time?
Yeah, it's like a week later or something. Crazy, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like,
Well, that's coming
how does the moon coordinate now?
Sorry, Andre.
Everywhere.
I get inquisitive.
And below Ed is Mr. Dave Ryan, writer, director, producer, Retro Freaks, many more. Dave, what's up, man?
What's going on, guys? So happy to be hanging out with everyone today. So happy we were able to line up everyone's schedule and get some hangout time in, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, our special guest, Mr. Andre Gower, writer, producer, actor, actor of commercials, movies, sports. He does it all. Andre, how's it going, dude?
It's going pretty good. You know, we changed our clocks, so I think we're starting to get good here. Sorry, Ed. No, but it's good. You know, it's technology. Smooths out all the rough edges, or something like that. But no, glad we connect. Going good. Trying to enjoy some of the crazy weather that's been on the West Coast. It just won't stop. So it's I got to get out there and get outside.
Yeah,
Right
for
on.
sure. Been crazy over in your neck of the woods for sure.
Absolutely.
Bonkers. All right, so today we are we're going to talk Monster Squad, Wolfman's got Nards, Retro Freaks, and all that. But first, I thought it would be fun, like getting to know Andre on the set of Retro Freaks. We were filming in a toy store, and I was like, Andre, like, what do you know about toys? Do you collect? Where's the attachment? Do you have anything that we can like connect on that level with? And he was telling me that he used to do commercials, toy commercials, especially for Mattel. I know you said a lot of Hot Wheels, Masters of the Universe, and some others. So I guess starting off, like, did the commercials come first, or was it more of your TV like series and stuff like that? What came first?
Well, probably a mix kind of commercials and TV, but back then there was just it seems like there was more commercials back then than there is now, even though there's more content. But it's different. Just a ton of commercials constantly, even with less channels. This is pre-cable. This is way pre-internet. For those of you listening and watching, there was a time. And there was not only no internet, there was no cable. And, you had three networks, three network channels, maybe one or two local, kind of affiliate independent stations, and then PBS, if picked that up. And, so that was all your programming, really. And but commercials were a lot. And especially if you were a kid, there was a lot of kids programming sort of in the afternoon, when we all got home from school. And then, of course, on the weekends, early morning, Saturdays and Sundays, cartoons and kung fu theater and old monster movies and stuff that was geared towards the younger audiences. Therefore, you've got to advertise the products because the kids are the biggest market. They buy everything.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was, it started off commercials very young. My sister is older than I am, and she was in the industry before me. And I just was sort of around it and started showing up to her commercial auditions and commercial sets. And then I was just sort of next, I guess. And just kind of, you kind of get thrown into it, and you either like it or you don't. And apparently I was like a duck in water and started doing a ton of commercials left and right. And, start everywhere from soft drinks to fast food to toys and, family vacation cars, things like that. It's everything. And, clothing, and then, a lot of print work too. There was a lot of print work that went around because, again, pre-cable, pre-internet, of course, you got magazines and catalogs and special flyers and all this stuff. So not only would you shoot a commercial, but you do a whole photo shoot for that ad too. And, that would show up somewhere also. And just a lot of work as a younger kid. And, just sort of kind of got lucky, I guess, in that kind of small group of that age range, depending on what it was, whether you were the, really young, cute little scamp with the floppy hair that, was the tag along in some ad for, Sergio Valente jeans or something. And, or, you were, one of the main kids for a Hot Wheels ad or a Masters of the Universe commercial or something.
Yeah, that is freaking awesome. Like when you were telling me that, I was like, I have to find these commercials. And I know originally we tried to get you on the show last year, but with scheduling and all that didn't work out. But I'm kind of glad it worked out that way because I wouldn't have known this. And this is I think an interesting thing for toy collectors and stuff. I mean, you can kind of connect the two, and I thought it was a perfect segue. So I do. Let's see.
You gonna run one?
Yeah, I'm gonna run one.
All right, Andre,
I'm
you
gonna
ready?
run one.
Which is it? Which is it?
I don't know, man.
It's random.
It's
Commercial
random.
roulette.
There are some favorites that are still in the brain pan, so maybe maybe these are some of them.
Okay, so this is one. One of I know myself and Ed's favorite toy lines. So let's
Some trip trouble is Hurricane Hordak with his sky chopper. His thunderball mace bashes.
You're next, Boneface. Come in,
His body blade slashes.
he's out of control.
Can anything stop?
Oh!
The Master of Disaster, Hurricane Hordak. New from the Masters of the Universe. Action figures sold separately from Mattel.
Bone face. I still use that one.
nice.
I
still
love
use
that.
that. I called someone bone face the other day, as a matter of fact.
Bone face. Love
So
it.
when I got a question, when you were when you were doing that commercial, was Masters of the Universe a thing, or were they introducing the toys before the cartoon came out? Like, were you aware of any of the characters, or was this just a day at work for you?
Well, yes, but I think the by the time Hordak came out,
Yeah, that's
Master
a late
Universe had
release.
been kind of that was a late character.
It's already She-Ra.
Okay,
I did.
my bad. guys.
No, but I did.
Yeah, Dave,
also,
if you want to drop off, that'd be fine.
that wasn't my only He-Man ad. I did early ones too, which I can't recall if like the first one I ever did was prior to the actual kind of product launch. I would probably say no, because I think my earliest one, I did. I mean, I remember actually being the kid holding He-Man one time. So I don't think it was the the launch of He-Man himself, but I think the line was "Not so fast, Skeletor," and and that deep at the same time.
Yeah,
I think I did the Beastman ad too, maybe if that was back in the day. I don't even know how many Masters of the Universe, because it was a weird. It was a weird time, but it was an interesting time because I did so many Mattel commercials that it was almost like I was just on call. And, I used to go to the, because you'd have, a commercial edition for, Hurricane Hordak, show up at 3:00 on, so-and-so address. And all the Mattel stuff was always cast out of their ad agency, which is Ogilvy and Mather. And, so they had this, big building on Wilshire, and you used to go there and do the auditions and then leave. And after a while, it used to be like, okay, Andre, can you come in because we're doing the auditions for whatever? And I would have to come in and just stay all day because I was already doing the commercial, I guess. And I would just have to stay there for hours, and like everybody else would read, and then like we'd all pair up and they'd find the ensemble of the, the scamps to do the ads, and then the week after that or 2 weeks we'd go shoot the commercial. And boy, I remember spending hours and hours at Ogilvy and Mather, just they were from Hot Wheels to Masters of the Universe, of course, and Poochie was like a girl's toy that was a little ball. It was like a little dog that like you press it and you could write out like stamps. It was a stamp.
Oh,
and so Poochie, like I was the Poochie kid, and did a couple ads with some old friends that show up, and you're like, oh yeah, look, there's that's Shalane McCall. Boy, she was tall when we were 11, and still gorgeous. And so it was fun doing all these ads, because commercials you got to show up and do work. I mean, it's a day or 2 or 3 of work, and depends on where you are. And I remember being a lot of stuff when you're on a stage, like all the Master Universe stuff was cool because they actually built like worlds. Like they built like fake mountains, and you'd have like a Castle Grayskull, the toy, but then you'd have like all this like fake rock and all the smoke and like lightning and all this. It's pretty rad.
I think that's like the most exciting thing about those 80s toy commercials, where they would like really create like a world around it and you'd get immersed in it. But you obviously knew, this is just a set. Like
because you could see it. It's on like a table with some legs, and like you see the lights and everything. But it's movie magic, and when you're in the frame, it's it's pretty cool. It looks like you're on Hordak's planet or whatever.
I always wonder, like, if those toys that you got to hold, were they like prototypes, or were they already factory test runs? Because, like, for instance, like the Hordak wanted at like a gimmick relying on a mechanism,
right?
And was it you operating that, or was it already done post production, like the mechanism work and stuff like that?
I think it was a blend. The ones that were always used in were kind of like hero. I don't think they just went to Toys R Us and got some for their. They were special because they were perfect. They made sure they worked appropriately if they had action to them. And I remember wasn't there like a one where even like you would punch and like do something like that. I think we had to do that, and or like it was on a spring, so you twisted it and it could like do that. I think so. I think we did that one. The Hordak thing, I don't recall if I was actually clicking the thing to make it go around, or if they had. Like a Mattel kind of pro, off camera. I'm sure they did one for a lot of things. When you're looking at on camera with kids, then you don't see the kids. It's because it's a timing issue. Yeah. And kids only have so much time on set, and you have to be in school during the day if it's during the school year. So they're like, the kids got to leave. So okay, let's have the the stand-in model or the the Mattel rep or something like do the action. So I'm sure it was a blend of a little of that, but. I remember
you never had any problems with like the toy. Just
not that I could recall. It was like, hey, this thing doesn't work. Like, what kind of toy is this?
This is junk.
That's going to be that what you just asked is going to be a segue to another commercial that you did.
I was about to say, I think there is a segue there.
Let's go ahead and take that segue.
Yeah. Want to roll it? Okay.
I don't even think I need to ask it. I think we could talk about a certain commercial that happened that may not have been up to par prior to you doing that commercial, right?
In what it's meaning what? Like what was up to par? Not up to par?
E.T.?
Look, this was a big commercial. This was a big it was a big set build. It was on a sound stage and effects and smoke and fog and dry ice, and it was coming after this, shortly after the movie had kind of released in the summer, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal. Sort of like recreating it. Yeah, I'm basically recreating Elliot in the shed, and we had to. I remember this shoot very, very well because a lot of cool things happened, and I remember where the audition was for that one too. It's this house I used to call it the Pumpkin House. It was on. Fairfax, and I just passed by it. I goes, hey, that's where the Pumpkin House used to be, but now there's condos. And it was a big deal. And I remember the director was talking about stuff and all these props, and it was dark and had the smoke going. I'd never worked with bee smoke before, so they had this bee smoke and then dry ice. First time I'd worked with dry ice before. I was fascinated by that. and I was pretending ET was in the shed and throwing me a video game.
Awesome. We are going to roll that. Let's see. If you guys haven't watched it, it's a treat. So let's check it out.
Somebody out there? E.T. Video game?
It's the video game that lets you pretend you're E.T., running away from secret agents, falling into danger, finding a phone to call home, and discovering the best thing on earth, a friend. E.T., only from Atari.
Nice. Dude,
I
So-
noticed a
I
lack
like
of bone face. Lack of bone.
Lack of bone face on this one. Yes, I think that's going to be the kicker. Yeah, don't fall in the pit. If you ever play that game, you'll never get out.
Yeah.
The commercial has nothing to do with the game.
Oh,
but I have been blamed on YouTube in a chat of tanking Atari. Like it was my fault that Atari went in the shitter.
that was kind of one of my questions. Is like, did you play the game, or had anybody played the game prior, like before the commercial was set up?
The game didn't exist. They were still
I don't
building
think
it,
so.
and so
didn't
There
they
you go.
like make it in 6 weeks or 3?
Yeah,
months?
so I think it was
like
5. I
very-
think it was 5 or 6 weeks because Zach Penn's documentary goes into that in pretty good detail called Game Over, which he uses the commercial in there. Never got an artist release for that doc, but I guess you don't have to if it's a documentary. But you should. I would have given it. I just didn't know it was coming out. I loved this documentary; it was great, and explained the whole thing about the game designer that was kind of like Atari's biggest game designer for years and made all the famous games. And he usually has 5 to 6 months to build a game, and they said you have 5 weeks.
Wow.
So that's why
So
ET
crazy.
Atari the video game sucks.
Yeah.
Because the guy only had 5 weeks, but then like he went into this whole thing and like quit his job and became like a counselor or something. Like everybody like blamed him. He's like, you only gave me 5 weeks, but they had I think some initial footage of a game that he had built, or they had built, and it was hooked. I remember a guy from Atari being a rep and setting up like a VHS machine or a Betamax to the TV on the set, and we were just mimicking. The game was not playable. It was just we were just faking it, looking at some static images and some things of ET moving, and we're like, okay, what's he supposed to? Okay, so we're just supposed to be playing. And that version that we is, I think the only one that's still out there. There's a longer cut of that commercial. There's like a 60-second version of the ET Atari commercial.
Really?
I don't know where that is. I think it's been lost in the
buried in the
Might be
landfill.
somewhere. Yeah, it's in Alamogordo, New Mexico. But yeah, no, the game did not exist yet. I'm gonna guess we shot that commercial probably in November or something, October, November of that year, because they wanted the game to come out for Christmas.
Yeah.
And that was the mistake. That was the mistake.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't it like a combination of this game flopping, but them also bringing Pac-Man to the system and like producing even more copies than they had already sold consoles.
But I thought it was like, hey, this how we do this
Yeah.
business. Let's make more product than for the machine. Yeah, probably something like that. It's if I was 10. So I have no idea what any of this stuff is going on at the time. I'm just I'm trying to recreate a movie that I saw like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Some of the guys in the chat are asking like if you ever received like free product for the commercials you did stuff for. Was that like something that was done, or did you just get like a contract? And
occasionally you can get some good stuff. Now the good story with the ET Atari commercial is kind of like there's two paths there. Is I was so a little backstory with we've all seen ET, and when they're riding bikes in the neighborhood, like when they start to fly, that's on White Oak Boulevard at San Fran Mission. That's about a block away from my house, that one of the houses I grew up in. When they're riding in the park, and then they go down the they kind of go down the housing pads and the cops are chasing them. That's all my old neighborhood. And so we invented that shit. Like C. Thomas Howell did not invent that. We were doing that years before they shot
That's awesome.
ET in my neighborhood. and then actually the bus stop scene, it's on like at a corner where it says, maybe it's from Uranus, get it? And anytime you get an anus joke in a movie, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my houses. I lived in that house.
Oh,
So
that's great.
E.T. and I are all over the place. And that damn Henry Thomas, because I auditioned for E.T. didn't get it because we've all seen that tear jerking audition that Henry does on YouTube, and he should have got it because he's fantastic. But
I thought it was kind of generic, to be honest. I didn't really.
Yes, it's a cute kid crying.
He phoned that in, you know what I mean?
But there was so we're really into like dirt biking and BMX was just starting to kind of like be a thing. And not only was BMX an activity, but it was also a brand. Like it was actually a brand. And I had like a kind of shitty dirt bike at the time. Like it wasn't like a cool kid bike. And there was different brands. If we all go back at our age, there was different brands, and you could tell what brand of dirt bike you had, what kind of status you were in the dirt bike world. And GT and Redline and Diamondback were kind of those those upper crust tier, and then you had like Mongoose and things like that. And on the set, because biking had there was a really cool Mongoose bike. I was like, ooh, Mongoose, that's. Because I'm little, I'm still young. I'm preteen, and I'm like, oh, that's a great bike. I was like, man, I want that bike. And I asked, I think I inquired. I was like, hey, is there any way like I could buy that bike, or is that bike available? And the director came to me and said, hey, I asked the art department, and it's actually a prop that we rented, so it has to be returned. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. I was just a cool bike, and I'd love to have a Mongoose because my bike sucks. And so that was cool. And we shoot for 2 or 3 days on this set. And when we wrapped, 2 things happened. One was they brought over this giant box that was gift wrapped in like wrapping paper. And the Atari rep, I can't remember her name. She was great until she wasn't. And she goes, here, we want to give you a console. And I was like, oh, man, because I didn't have one. And I said, this is amazing. I'm getting a free Atari 2600. This is the first console. And she goes, yes, and I'm shipping you every single game that Atari makes. But I don't have them, but I got to ship them to your house. And then, of course, we'll send you this one. We said, yeah, never got one game. And so I had my 2600 for a long time. And so I got a free console. And that was like, whoa, this is rad. I'm getting every game Atari makes. I was like, I can't wait to get my hands on Defender in my own house because that game's hard. And I never got one game. But then also right after they gave me the console, I saw these like balloons coming around the corner, and I don't like. I'm not a balloon fan. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I hate balloons. And oh shit! Hang on. Hang on. To be Detroit, I got to unlock the door. Hang on a second. I don't know I'm going to be right back. I'm at my sister's house. Hold on.
It's the Atari rep. It's the Atari rep with the video games.
Yeah. Empty promises. Can't deliver on some games, like every single game in the Atari library. What's wrong?
So what's everybody else's biggest disappointment in their lives?
Let's say.
And the dogs. Okay, sorry. So I am back. That was perfect timing. I'm so professional. So I see these balloons coming around the corner, and I'm like, oh man, they're giving me balloons. Like, I don't like balloons. Like I remember thinking this. But it changed because the balloons were tied to the handlebar of this brand new Diamondback.
Whoa.
And I was like, whoa. And it was
I want his Mongoose.
It was red. Yeah, I mean, I jumped up a level. I was like, what is happening here? And the director, his name was Mark Story. And he was a young guy. I think he was probably like 25 at the time or something. And he was like, hey, we couldn't get you that bike, but, this has been such a great experience that we wanted to, find a great dirt bike for you. And, we went to the big bike store in LA because there was one huge bike store. It's still there called I Martin Imports. And this was like a $500 Diamondback at the time. It was insane. Yeah. And I kept that thing for like 10 years. It was amazing. And left it in my friend Jason Lavitt's garage. And I think his dad either sold it or threw it out or something because I left it there too long one weekend. And I wish I still had that now because it'd be worth about $5,000.
Yeah.
I just
and
picked up a
I'd ride it
vintage
around.
Diamondback.
But so that was a great example of getting product from a shoot. Sometimes you get the clothes. A lot of times you can't get product because like you were saying, it doesn't exist yet. So you can't be walking around with a toy that doesn't happen. They don't let it out. And so there's a couple things that I think I still have. Greg, I think I sent you that one ad for that toy, that truck, kind of like a Transformers ripoff.
Yeah.
And which is totally what it is a Transformers ripoff. And I still have that somewhere. I got stuff kind of, it's not scattered, but it's all packed away. It's all packed away somewhere.
Didn't you say you got them all in your attic, or like your mom's attic or something like that?
Yeah, they were in boxes and garages in different houses for years. And I've always sort of personally been all over the place, but I've never kind of really like, stayed in one place for a long time and had the house and all that. And you just end up maybe like, why are we keeping this? Or are we keeping this? And then, people keep stuff that you shouldn't keep, like you really do. And my mother kept everything. And I say everything, I mean everything. Like she kept the envelopes from letters that came in from stuff like a charity event. I'm like, we got to get rid of this. And so, every couple of years you do a big purge, but some things are cool enough you got to keep just in case they're just in case they've got some either value in dollars or value in coolness or just in kind of uniqueness. And there's a handful of things that are pretty kind of cherished, not necessarily just from shoots or products, but from experiences or events or things like that you got to do in this crazy world that I grew up in that not everybody gets to experience.
Yeah.
Sounds like a future Attic Invaders episode, guys. What do you think?
That's kind of what I was getting to. Like, we need to go visit
That's why
Andre.
you're here, Andre.
Yeah, like,
we're gonna put you on the spot
happening.
live.
That's fine.
Greco wants to come lowball you on all of your childhood memories.
Totally rip you off.
Well, as long as you put them in an own cabinet and says, from the collection of, is probably okay with
Perfect, of course.
Yeah, I was just in my.
tells everyone. He's like, it's for my kid.
It's right. It's for future. It's for the future. I was just in my storage unit, and I just moved a bunch of stuff over there, and it's you start going through it, and you're like, oh, God, if I go through this crate, it's going to take because everything's kind of meticulously packed. You're like, I don't even know what's in here.
Yeah.
And if I take it out, you guys, it's bonkers. So and I've said for years, I need to go through it and catalog it and photograph it and actually make an inventory of what's there. Yeah. Because you just don't know what's going to show. There might be like, I know I never got a version of the ET game, so thanks a lot, Atari rep. But I've got some other cool stuff, and a lot of the things that you did have from that, or that you get as a kid, and you now, as we're talking about it and doing movies in these great stores, you just didn't think of keeping.
Absolutely.
But you wish you're like, oh, I had that or that, and there's a couple things I lament not hanging on to for sure.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's especially like when we were filming and you're walking around Dallas Vintage Choice, you're looking around, you're just like, oh, okay, that's like $700 now.
Yeah, right.
I remember hitting that with a baseball bat.
That's right. Like it was plastic. Who cares? Especially figures, and I've actually still got some old original, action figures, and I don't know if I have any of my Masters of the Universe stuff still. But that'd be kind of cool.
Well, the three above us, Craig, Greco, and Ed, you can go live with them. You could get those totes at some point whenever you get back to them. Live with them, and they'll help you sort accessories. The tiny part that isn't catalog. These guys know what's up.
Yeah. Craig and I have talked about that, in real quick, and we'll have to set that up one day. But there's a massive amount of shit. And one of the things, like, my mother is still my mother, but my mother, she still thinks that I'm like obsessed with trains, and I was like, I've never been obsessed with toy train, like, because toy train like collectibles like a whole other world, like it's like the it's like the weird old dude from the 40s that collects trains, you're like, no.
That's
But
what it
trains
says on
were-
your Wikipedia page, though.
Love toy trains.
Love
Obsessed.
trains.
Toys.
Choo choo.
Gower,
Choo choo
training
Gower.
enthusiast.
No, Choo Choo Gower. Oh my god, that's gonna be my porn name or something. I don't know. I love real trains. Like I actually dig like actual trains. I'm fascinated. I dig, like toy train. I'm like okay, and like I kept getting like toy train stuff for years. I'm like I'm not into toy trains. But I've got like this old, I've got this old toy train thing and a little like you build the Western town of the thing. I'm like, what do I have this stuff for? I don't even remember. It's got to be worth something. So those are one of the things that we do as well. But it's just, if we're talking about toys, because Ed mentioned keeping stuff that may or may not be that Craig. I think I told you about the Star Wars stuff one time. That it wasn't long after that ET commercial because I went to like an Academy screening of a movie called Revenge of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the promos.
And so it was this big deal, and like Lucas was like everybody was there, and a handful of people got invited to this giant screening. And if you were a kid, that was on kind of like the PR list, and you got a swag bag.
Ooh.
And so you got a swag bag of stuff from a Star Wars movie, which is cool. But it all said Revenge of the Jedi. And it was a couple of action figures and like a button and like some EPK type stuff and still photos. And the coolest thing was a toy ship in a box. This is pre-blister pack days, right? But they're in a like box, styrofoam, it's fitted in there, sealed, and it was a ship that doesn't exist in any movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I even watched the movie and. Because I think it says something like Imperial Shuttle on the box, and so you watch the movie, and they've replaced it with the first one, the first Imperial Shuttle that they steal and take to Endor. And I think they just replaced the ship on the exteriors and the effects. But I had like what it was. So they made a toy because they were going to sell this thing. And not only does the ship not exist, but it says Revenge of the Jedi on the box. And like, I didn't know they were going to change the name of the movie. So I took it out of the box and played with it for a year. And then it got lost and thrown in the garbage.
Oh man.
I can't imagine having a ship that doesn't exist as a hard toy. Like, I mean, it was probably that big.
Yeah.
And, had a cannon on the front. These wings did come down, but it looked very boxy. It looked very Rogue One-ish, actually. And in the box, I wish I had the box, just the front of the box to say Revenge of the Jedi would have been rad. But the only thing I have from that swag bag, I still have the button.
Mm-hmm.
Like the button you got. This is Revenge of
That's still cool because, I mean, like you said, I mean, like that kind of merch, like, doesn't really exist anymore. Like, just
I don't think it existed like a month after that screening because they changed the name of the movie and did a lot of different things. So that was kind of cool. And then like I said, when you go through these boxes and these crates and stuff, you reach in there and you come up with something like, I don't even remember having this, but this is awesome. Even if it's not something you had, it's just something from your childhood, even if it wasn't screen used or from a product launch or something like that. And I've got a handful of really cool items.
That's awesome. Greco.
What?
You were going to ask Andre something.
Uh-oh. Yeah, fire away. Yeah.
Your turn.
I was.
He's like, I'm going to wait until we just do the unboxing of all of the garbage.
Yeah. Well, speaking of merchandise, one of your projects that never came to fruition in the toy form was Monster Squad. And I'm just curious, what's the deal with that?
What's
the deal with no Dracula? This sucks. Seinfeld would have said that.
Blah, blah, blah.
He can use it. He can give me a stipend or something. So when you make, they don't make merch for movies that bomb in the box office. And, look, we signed the rights. We did the photos, for the boxes, all that marketing PR preliminary preparation that you do, and then the movie bombs in the box office, literally and figuratively. They don't make action figures and toys, and they don't do Burger King tie-ins on the glasses. When you get the when you get the kids meal and get the the plastic cup with Frankenstein or Gilman on it, which that all would have happened if the movie did well. And that would have been pretty cool too.
Is that why there's no Retro Freaks action figures either?
Absolutely. 100%.
Not yet. We still got to let this thing breathe and get some out there.
JK.
I think like Monster Squad, what was that, like 87, 88?
Yeah, it was summer of 87.
Yeah, that's like when all the toy companies were already kind of like over. We're not going to try to sign the next Star Wars thing, because usually you want it, like the ET game, you want it done when it comes out.
Yeah, right.
So you would actually already have a lineup. So perhaps like they didn't offer it as a license, or toy companies were just not looking for it.
They're just out. And
late 80s was like very difficult for them to like really commit to lines anyways.
Well, I think things were changing a little bit at that time too, right? The kids were doing different things. We had a little bit more technology. You could go see more content. Were we staying at home as much, playing with stuff that we did 2, 3, 4 years earlier? It's an interesting kind of dive into that. What's interesting is subsequently, even if you just skip over the next 19 and a half years of the movie coming out, and then all of a sudden Monster Squad has this giant resurgence in 2006. All the companies were like, oh my God, this is now a thing, and it starts to build, and they're like, hey, we want to make figures and toys and whatever. I mean, it's all the brand, and it was always a rights issue. And so not only because no one knew who had the rights, the Monster Squad, the movie, and title rights, production rights, or story rights, or merch rights were all wrapped up kind of into the same thing. And it was kind of an enigma for a long time. And even after kind of the resurgence launched, I had producer friends of mine and stuff that I grew up calling me like, hey, we want to, we're going to remake, or we want to do a sequel. Like, who has the rights? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know. Why do I know who has the rights?
Has that ever been figured out?
It wasn't at the time. Yeah. And then what was interesting is, if I had, a little bit better business-minded Andre at the time, I would have been like, okay, wait a minute. There's a lot of people asking about where the rights for the Monster Squad are. No one can find them. Like, no one can tell you who it is. And I'm like, well, what does it take to like search that? That takes like lawyers and like databases and like all these, like people do it. Like someone's got to find the piece of paper. But they had been doing it. No one could find the piece of paper. And I was like, well, how much does buying the rights to a movie that no one remembers cost? And I was like, I could probably scratch that together right now once we find it.
My brain's thinking that through this conversation. I'm like, all right, so who's got it?
Yeah. Right, well, this is 2006.
Yeah, for sure.
We know who has it now. And a year later, Lionsgate, we're doing a convention, and this guy, Michael Felsher, who, we've known now for years, says, I am producing the Monster Squad special edition 20th anniversary DVD for Lionsgate. And we were like, who are you? No, you're not. We don't know who you are, and no one's told us that this is happening. And this is the director, the lead, and 2 of the other co-stars of the movie. Like, no one has heard anything about this. Who are you? And that's why I really don't like my interview in the 20th anniversary DVD box set, because I was unprepared. Like, we're all like pasty and like out of shape and like didn't have a haircut. We're just showing up at some convention to sign autographs. And they launched this thing, and they said, well, no, Lionsgate has the rights, and we ended up confirming that. And they had the video rights to market a re-release in the DVD finally, because the DVD had never been produced, and it sold gangbusters. And then it went to Paramount, because like movie rights change in like big batches, like they're just like giant things, and they just kind of move around. And over the conversations for the years, everybody was like, oh, we used to have Monster Squad rights years ago, and then Aaron Spelling's company had the rights to Monster Squad for years. And then it ended up at Paramount. And for, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years, if, now that Monster Squad's popular again, we're doing all these appearances. Anytime it showed on Netflix or on Hulu or on Amazon Prime, or anytime someone did a screening of it at a theater on the road, you'd have to pay licensing fee to Paramount. And then fast forward a couple of years after that to making Wolfman's Got Nards, we have to deal with the studio that currently has the rights to the movie that we are referencing, one, and then showing footage, two. You don't have to pay for footage in a documentary if you're doing it in context and you're doing it the correct way, because it's fair use. But we also used some of that BTS footage that was actually a documentary being made while we shot the movie in 86. And so we had to pay for that, and Paramount said we own that. But it was a weird interaction with Paramount at the time, because they were trying to charge for all this footage, and it was ridiculous, and it was so expensive. And at the time, for about 10, 12 years, Paramount had been making all the money off of Monster Squad. But when you asked Paramount to provide the documentation that proves that they owned the rights, they could not produce the document. And so there's a thing that happens in media law that if rights are in question after 35 years of the original authorship or release of product, it reverts back to the original authors. We have reached that 35-year mark. And I know the original authors, I guess, had done some preliminary legal work to secure that and batten that down. So I'm not at liberty or, a licensed representative to talk about the details, but hopefully all that happened, and the rights are actually back with the two guys that originally wrote it.
That's awesome.
You can talk freely. It's just you and us here.
Yeah.
We're not really live.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got to get the update on it, because that was all from last year and the year before. So that's great, I think, because that's kind of cool that if it is back in Fred and Shane's hands, then the right people have it.
Yeah,
right on. Sounds like do you still have a good do you have a good relationship with them?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I was just I just talked to Shane on I don't talk to Shane as much as I talk to Fred. I don't know why. I think I just don't call him as often as I call Fred.
Oh no, so is life,
Just super cool. Shane, I talked with these guys a lot leading up, when we were doing the stuff for the documentary, and then after the documentary. But that was, a number of years now. And then COVID shut everything down, so no one saw anybody for a while. And I text with Fred a lot, and I just had a phone call about something else with Shane last month, and caught up a little bit. But it was those guys are, you can't get any cooler than those two guys.
That's really cool information, and hopefully we'll hear more updates on that. Sooner rather than later.
Because that's one of the questions that I know myself, Greco, and Ed, when we do these live streams. People talk about, like, hey, what's the one action figure line that you wish they made? It's always Monster Squad. It's always Monster Squad.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it also have like an issue of using monsters? Like, is there anything like universal properties connected to some of it? I know they changed the names to kind of like not be exactly as
right.
They did.
Have you heard of any of like issues with that? Or
well, the issues are the ones that they had to resolve shooting the movie, number one. And the first thing was the actual the characters, except for Creature from the Black Lagoon, the characters were all public domain because they were old enough. But the actual visual representation of Frankenstein and Creature were still owned by Universal, because they had created those and they weren't expired yet. And so that's why Gilman changes to Gilman and looks a little different. And that's why Frankenstein looks. I actually like our Frankenstein better than this, the old classic Universal one. It looks a little bit more plausible. And so I think that settles that issue. And shit, now it's been 35 years after that. I think they're all in public domain, so it doesn't matter now. But our Creature from Black Lagoon was like my favorite, creature feature, 50s as a kid growing up watching. And I think he's definitely one of our cooler, characters, because it set the tone for creature builds on the special effects side. and launched all of those guys. That was interesting. The recreation. I think the best thing that happened to Monster Squad on the creative side with the monsters was the fact that they couldn't recreate exact, and they had to come up with their own.
Yeah.
And in doing so, these guys like Tom Woodruff and Alec Guinness, who now own Legacy, who now own Studio ADI, and then Shane Mahan and John Rosengren, who own Legacy Effects, and Steve Wang and Matt Rose. And Matt Rose just passed away a couple years ago. They have their own shop. It was like all these kids that worked on Monster Squad grew up to be the industry leaders in creature effects and creature builds, and literally do every giant movie. It's pretty bonkers, all coming out of Stan Winston's shop in the mid '80s. And I think it's not look, it's cool to see. Look, I've seen an action figure of me. People make them, and Stephen King rules, and painted on, or an actual shirt. Everybody wants an action figure themselves. That'd be cool. I think to show what those guys did and changed a paradigm in creature effects creation would be really cool to see their work, kind of immortalized in a line of merch.
Yeah, 100%. Have a freaking Gilman action figure. Forget about it.
Yeah,
Forget about it.
And have all the corny stuff that he was supposed to do in the movie. Like, there's a lot of stuff that there's a deleted scene that's so bad that I think his death scene isn't long enough. I think it needs to be more. Like, I think he needed like an arm. I think Horace really needed like cut him down instead of just one pull of the trigger and it's over. That was kind of I was always kind of. But there was one where he dies and there's a close up of him, and like a goldfish shoots out of his mouth and lands on the sidewalk. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad we didn't have that. That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
Yeah, we have to pay homage to that.
We'll pay.
So yeah,
you
get the Gilman for Monster Squad action figure and hit the button in the back, and a goldfish cracker shoots out or something. We could tie it in with Pez or like Goldfish, Pepperidge Farms. Something.
Can that be my death scene? I want that, Dave.
Retro Freaks too. Yeah.
Write it in.
Yeah, someone dies and a goldfish just comes out of their mouth, and it's a super, super deep cut.
1,000%. It's already done. I'm editing right now.
Yeah, keep writing it in.
No, it's like, dude, that's how. I mean, we're making these things. We're making these things to have fun and have our own little inside jokes in there. But like, it'll be weird enough that people will enjoy it, I think. And we could just throw back to this conversation. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, just make sure I write in on a mongoose next time, Dave. We'll do that.
You'll get to keep it.
Craig, I don't know if you have, since it isn't really toy, but one of my favorite commercials I ever did, since I'm an old one, is I did a rad Nike commercial one time.
Oh, nice.
And it was one of the first times. I'm not sure if it was the first time, but they actually ran a Nike commercial for a kid's shoe, and because it was like it was a scaled down high top kind of version. And I loved it because that's on YouTube too. It's called Nike Sky High, I think. Okay. And I remember that too because they needed, since you mentioned sports and everything, but I was always an athlete and played a bunch of sports, but basketball was always my favorite sport. And I remember the audition was like, hey, we need basketball players for this Nike commercial. I was like, oh, they're just gonna have a bunch of kids playing basketball. I'm in. Got it. Let's go. And what it ended up being, it was supposed to be an ad that was sort of a la Pete Maravich, like, where this kid in the commercial, everywhere he goes, he's dribbling a basketball. So he's in school, he's at the grocery store, he's getting his hair cut, like he's riding his bike, and he's just dribbling a basketball. So you had to go to the audition and show, like, could you dribble a basketball and do anything with a basketball? And I was like, yeah, I got this. And then they ended up changing the commercial to everything this kid did, he was shooting a basket. And that's what the commercial ended up being. But so and the one that's out there live, but I got to keep those shoes. So yes, I did. I got a pair of those shoes at the time. So, but that's an old retro-y one. That's pretty cool too. So
that's cool. What was the name of those shoes again?
I don't know if the name of the shoes, but I know the commercial it's called Nike Sky High, I think.
Okay. And, I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's I was trying to think of the ones that actually got product from, and I did get those shoes. I did get those shoes.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Love it. Good.
Dave, what you got, man? What you got?
So, I mean, just to bring up Wolfman's Got Nards, it's amazing that you did that. It was a great accomplishment. So I just kind of wanted to hear it again. I know a little bit more, but it's a newer audience that's watching this right now. So Just a little bit of a step by step, and then I have a couple other follow ups with that. Like, how
Yeah.
when did you decide I should make a movie about the fandom for this movie? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, that's like a 4-hour conversation
know.
anywhere of how it builds up. It's sort of like, really what it was we mentioned the kind of resurgence of Monster Squad itself, and then we started doing screenings and conventions, and we honestly thought that was going to last about a year, maybe into the next summer. Like, oh, maybe get 2 summers out of this. This is cool, and it just didn't stop. And not only did it not stop, it kept getting kind of stronger and deeper and thicker. And we kept hearing these stories. It's like, oh, Monster Squad, you don't understand. It's my favorite movie, and no one knew about it, and I did, and I played the VHS and brought it to my school, and it's all these stories that we all know now. But these were all new stories. These were all new stories. But then those stories were being repeated by different people, and everywhere we went, we could be in a completely different city, and we hear very similar stories. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so that was sort of the foundation. But then after a while, we thought this all was going to end, and it didn't, and it's still going. And what I really started paying attention to, and that we started talking about, and when I say me, like Ryan and Ashley and myself, was that the impact that this movie had on these people. Whether they saw it in the theater, whether they saw it on HBO, whether they saw it at the video store, how they saw it, when they saw it, they all remember precisely. Like where I saw it, I got it. I went every Friday. I'd get it. The store manager just ended up giving me the videotape, or I went back to the movie theater. It was only in my town for one weekend. I had to wait for HBO. I recorded it, and all these stories kept coming in. But I realized that this movie connected with people in a way that I was not aware of, and nobody was aware of it. And then I thought, not only was that cool because I'm associated with it, but this is deeper than most like movie fandom. Like, we're all Star Wars fans. We're all Star Trek fans. We love Harry Potter. We love, whatever we love, but these Monster Squad people that became the Monster Squad fans, this movie connected with them in some way, shape, or form that they have not unconnected from, and it changed their life. Mm-hmm. And I heard hundreds and hundreds of those stories, mm-hmm. and I started listening to them. And then one day I realized, I was like, those stories are a story.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted a documentary to be. Now, my original concept for a documentary was completely different than what we ended up with. Thankfully, we ended up with something different than my original concept, because I thought it was just going to be, coming up on the 30th anniversary year, I'd go get, some used, 4K camera from a friend of mine or from a store, and Ryan and I would go on the road and do some, fan on the street type things at conventions, maybe do 2 or 3 fan interviews of people that we know in LA, and then have an editor friend of ours cut it together, for, a burrito. And then put it on our webpage, because Ryan and I had we had our own page and our merch page and our podcast at the time. So we were just going to put it up like for $1, like, hey, watch this cool, 20-minute documentary that we made coming up in the 30th anniversary year. And boy, as luck would have it, and serendipity, sliding doors, whatever you want to call it, synchronicity. I was going to lunch with an old friend of mine, Jen Oth, who worked at Pilgrim Studios. And as I was waiting for her to come out, we delayed a minute and said hi to somebody. And these 3 guys came out of the front of the building, and it was Henry McComas, Aaron Kunkel, and Wesley Caldwell. And they all stopped and knew who I was. I'd never met these guys. And Jen said, well, I mentioned that there's Monster Squad fans on my floor at my office, and here's some of them. And Henry, who's now one of my best buds and producing kind of development partners and project buddies, says, so what are you working on? And I told him I was working on this show that is currently at Lionsgate about former child stars being part of the secret organization. And Henry's like, that sounds rad. Mm-hmm. And he goes, by the way, when you get that show spun up, can we be your production company? I was like, I'll have that talk. He goes, no, because we just got acquired by Lionsgate. I was like, oh, so it's all sort of in-house. That'd be kind of rad. And then I said, and I'm kicking around an idea about doing a documentary coming up on the 30th anniversary of Monster Squad. And they all went, wait, what? And he goes, we need to have lunch. And Henry said, look, this is something that we actually are trying to do here in-house. Not Monster Squad specifically, but generate some our own stuff in-house. Because Pilgrim was sort of a for-hire documentary and mostly reality show production studio. And, they at one time, I think they were making like 32 reality shows at one time. And these guys were in a subset of this company. and said, I think we could put together a package and pitch it to the executives. But I think we can make a really good, kind of documentary here because all of us want to do that. And so that's what we did. And we put together a plan and a pitch and an idea. And we met with the execs, and it took about 15 minutes, and they greenlit it, and we went into production. And that was the luckiest thing that ever happened because Henry and those guys helped to make what I think is a really, really good documentary that doesn't play like a documentary. It kind of runs like a narrative story through the eyes of Monster Squad fans of how a movie, in this instance, Monster Squad, can affect someone's life and impact them and share that with everybody.
That's awesome. So I saw something the other day. Are they coming out with a Monster Squad and Wolfman Got Nards movie set, like a DVD set?
Where'd you read that? I want the link.
It's in, get this, the Monster Squad fan page on Facebook. Yeah,
I have to follow up with a particular individual who reached out a couple weeks ago about that. I don't know if it's going to be connected or not. I have to follow up, but apparently they're coming out with a new release. I don't know the info, and I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it or not. I don't know anything. I don't know it. I know that they're trying to work on something, I think, as a new release. Boy, if Wolfman's Got Nards, becomes a part of that, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I got to follow up with them on that. But I just got the initial email about they're coming, they're working on coming up with something like that. So that'd be kind of rad. So if that happens, I don't know. It's almost out of my hands, because we have to bring the current distributor in and work out a deal there. But I would love to have that conversation because, anything Monster Squad based, if the fans get their hands on it. A lot of people have seen Wolfman's Got Nards, and a lot of people like it. A lot of people haven't seen it because they don't know there's a documentary out there, even though I talk about it all the time. It's just one of those things that, we released what I thought might be in a great time because it was right in the first year of COVID and everybody was at home watching stuff. And we kind of ran into a couple different weird things with our acquisition and the release and all that. It was a little bit clunky and took a little bit of time. And I think that kind of muted, kind of put a little water on the match there. But, I can't say enough about the work that the guys put into that to make that film what it came out to be. And we had a wonderful, the best part of making that movie was everybody enjoying it at the festivals that we went to. We went all over the place and went to some awesome festivals and won some awards, and people just dug it. And that's what you want, when you see something in a room full of people, it was 100, 200 people in a room, and you're standing in the back of it the first time anybody's ever seen this cut, and you don't know if it's going to work or not. And you start seeing people reach for their sleeve and or laugh when they're supposed to laugh, or laugh in places that you didn't expect to laugh. And you see grown men blubbering in the corner. Then you made something that's pretty good.
You done good. Awesome, dude. I guess we can get into a little Retro Freaks talk.
So everyone in here is in a movie together.
That's right.
That's it.
And that's,
I was wondering what we had in common.
So, besides Hordak.
Yeah.
What's interesting, what we were talking about early when we first hopped on and we were just kind of talking and getting everything going, was that this, having you on Not Another Retro channel and talking with the Attic Invaders about all things retro, whether it be Monster Squad, your toy commercials, stuff like that, that's kind of what started you getting involved with Retro Freaks as well.
Absolutely.
Because we were I collect toys. I have a thing for nostalgia, and I just love that world. And I also am a filmmaker. When I got out of the Marine Corps, that's what I went to school for initially, and learned how to make films, and just kind of did that over time. And then I met Craig and was like, let's do this. And when we were in Retro Freaks, he was like, hey, I'm talking to Andre Gower. He's doing this. Do you think we should see if he wants to hang? And I was like, dude, yeah. And you were immediately ready to party, man.
Yeah.
It was that was awesome. So
Yeah, I think that was. I just think it was neat time because we did the episode and then Greg reached out and I liked I love being involved in stuff that people are trying to do and
Yeah.
it also helps if the story and the people are cool and fun
Yeah.
that are making it happen. Sometimes you got to say no. And
Yeah.
this was something that I liked your guys's kind of concept of what you wanted to do and build this world and and why not be a part of that? That seems like I'd be missing out.
So, yeah, like kind of going to what you just said, it's like a lot of times it's the people that you're doing a project with that matters more than anything.
Sure.
Like obviously money talks, but in a sense with these lower indie projects, it's like it's all about how well you mesh with people, and I think that's what everyone in Retro Freaks for the movie that what it is like everyone meshed really well.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to know from your perspective, working on so many different indie flicks. I mean, we would spend 4 days going through your IMDb, if we wanted to go. And like, I would love to do this more often so we can dive deeper into that kind of stuff. But in reference to other things that you've done coming into Retro Freaks, from the moment that we kind of started talking Retro Freaks to the day that you were on set, what was that vibe like? Did it meet expectations, or was it what was that feeling?
Everything, movie making is movie making, or TV making is TV making, but every single thing is its own thing. It has its own hurdles. It has its own kind of home runs. It has its own kind of fires and crazy people to put out and put down. But I think I kind of knew, because you guys had worked on it over a long span of time in small chunks instead of doing everything all at once, which is sometimes the only way to do something that you're trying to get done. And that's actually harder, right? That, it's like to spread it out and just try to piece it together and keep sort of the same kind of, tone going. But, we had talked on the phone and, numerous times, and it was, you had done so much that was already kind of put together because you already even had like an event to watch it date, by the time that I showed up. And I was like, wait a minute, then why am I showing? Like, does this matter? Like, does it work? Like, is it part of it? I feel like I'm being, a square peg in a round hole here. And is it going to work? And you're like, no, it's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. And, it slides in great. And I was like, well, I don't even know. Like, I don't know the style, the tone, the theme. I haven't seen anything. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, you sent me some, dialogue, which is, I don't need a month for dialogue, but, it's like you're writing it together and said, this is what this guy's going to do. This is how I'm seeing it. I'm like, great. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Am I going to come in? Because I was actually worried about coming in and like blowing it up and being like, who is this asshole? And he's not doing anything. Like, it's not going to match anything that we're doing. And so I was like, okay. And that's why I asked Cry, I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, how does it sound, feel? What's it going to be? And, and then I was like, now what am I going to do with this guy? Because I was like, I don't want to be me.
Yeah.
And so, Dave, you and I was like, okay, so I have like an idea. It's sort of a mix of a thing, but I don't know if it's going to work or not. Let me know. But I got to wear these glasses at least for a second.
Yeah,
because it's part of it. And because I just think it works when just something like that, when you don't have that much to do, adds just a little bit depth and a bit of layer to like a scene that we're just trying to get in the back room, to get this thing for, Craig and Cincy. And I was like, well, what can I do with this guy to make him kind of mesh with the whole world that I don't know these. I've never met anybody in real. I've never met any of these people in real life. And then, okay, I can assume, which, we know what happens there. But then I kind of like hung out with everybody. We had to show up and kind of shoot that day, right? And I was only in town for a day. Yeah. And that's, that's kind of normal. Like sometimes you got to go in and gun it and get out. And what you don't want to do is be the guy that keeps messing up to make the day long. So, you want to make sure that you can at least, get done the basics of what needs to be done. And then you can always build on it or try something different, or add it to make, a shot or a scene or a sequence or something, a little bit juicier or something like that. And I think we did that. I think it worked out good. I was a little worried until I saw the screen because I hadn't seen anything until we went to Dallas and saw this show. I was like, oh here it comes.
Yeah,
Oh no.
the first time you saw anything was in a room with nearly 600 people.
That's right. That's right. And and what was a lot of people don't know, unless I told them, but like I think we shot that on a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think we shot on a Tuesday, and I flew on Monday and then flew out the next day. But that Friday, Saturday, I had got so food poisoned, and I had never been this sick in my life. And I ended up getting sick 2 more times.
That's the first thing that you said when I picked you up from the airport.
Yeah.
The first thing that you said to me is you get in the car and you're like, I had food poisoning.
Yeah, I was like, by the way, I don't know how I look right now, but I probably look like crap.
No, you're killing it.
It shows a little bit because it was tough. I had to go. I ended up going to the hospital and getting fluids and had to stay there for half a day, and it was gnarly. And so, just for reference, if everybody that's had food poisoning, and then I've had an argument with somebody. It's like it counts, but I had 14 trips to the bathroom on that Friday night.
Holy moly.
And 4 to 6 heaves every trip, which translates into over 70 hurls.
Yeah.
So I threw up 70 times that night, which was about 2 days before I showed up to go,
shoot Retro Freaks.
Shoot Retro Freaks. And I was hoping, I was like, oh my God. I thought I felt okay. But then I realized, like, oh yeah, I look a little worn out and look a little puffy, but those are just actor bullshit things. But I loved it. I liked the vest. I liked the vibe. I dug all the guys in the store. And then what I really thought worked is when I saw it with Craig and Cincy, how they gonna carry these 2 guys. Just it's not bumbling through this movie, but these characters are sort of kind of bumbling through what they're trying to get. They're on a mission. And they're not Keystone Cops, but they have a thing. And I thought it worked because all I saw was this little snippet of these 2 guys trying to, work their way through this movie story. And hopefully my little bit, came in and added a little bit. There's a couple of things in there that I thought came off good. I thought it was good.
Oh yeah. It was great, dude.
And it, like, another really interesting part about you getting involved and being involved with Retro Freaks was we kind of talked, and then you were getting ready for another trip, so we were like kind of just going over it, feeling each other out, because we said, like, it's got to work everything has to work both ways, and make sure that, like, okay, we're all a good fit. And we hit it off, and you were traveling in like a week, and you're like, hey, what if it would be crazy if we could do it between this and this. And it was like kind of a position that you put myself and our co-writer director Michael Golderman in, where we had to fake it till we made it, and we were like, oh yeah, we got it, yeah, we're good. We had to stay up all night and like reworking this scene that we knew could mesh into the rest of the story,
right?
Because it was essentially written for you, because it was like, we want you in our circle. It was such a good vibe that it was like, how do we get him in? And we did it like that, dude.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that, and like I said, I think, not knowing what you're coming into, and then shortly after that, like I flew out the next day and had appearance, and then I had to go to a film festival. Then I started on a couple of days on another movie in Ohio. And it was a completely, kind of same situation, but a whole different world. And, that situation, they're all different, but you got to show up and plop into something that's already, again, on that small feature, I plop in on the last like 3 days of shooting that they've been shooting for like 14 days. And I'm in the last 3. So they've already been working and, cranked out of their minds for the last week and a half. And then I show up and I'm like, okay, how, what's going to work? What's not going to work? How are we kind of approaching this? But the problem is you have to think about it, but you can't overthink it.
Yeah.
And if you overthink it, then you'll really notice. And so, I was trying to, especially, that day in the store, we had and I know what it means to have a day to do, because we didn't have a second day.
Oh, no. And
it's like, let's get this day.
We shot like 5 pages in one day, which is not a typical thing.
Right.
Normally you're trying to stay within one,
and it's, we blasted through it, and, if there was something that, and I think we even got some extra in there to make that a little bit longer, because we were busting through it. So, and I think the sequence works out good. And you're limited to your space and what you can do and what you have available. And that's what filmmaking on the with planning and with no planning and coming in and trying to work it together and figure it all out. And not the only interaction I've ever had with Craig is on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a conversation. That's not doing a scene and and giving someone a line into their next line and reacting to them. But I think everything worked out, and hopefully I added a little bit to the project. But I think there's some things that because Dave, you and I talked about when you have something in the camera and it works, you can actually, or it doesn't work, you can actually mix it and mesh with it a little bit later and do some spaces and put some breaths in there. And there's some really funny stuff in that one scene with the reaction to Craig. And Craig's got 2 or 3 really good reactions in those scenes that I laugh at every time. I just showed it to someone the other day, and I was like, just check this out. And Craig's got some really good since he does as well. But a lot of times you watch yourself to see where you mess up.
Mm-hmm.
and you don't appreciate the other people in the shot, and so I try to really focus on watching the good stuff that everybody else does, and it just helps you. So it was good.
Oh,
yeah,
thanks, dude.
I love that because like with that, I mean, we learned how we all work together, and now we're already in talks for the second one. And I've watched a lot of like interviews where you're just kind of hopping on people's channels and you're talking to people and you're kind of concepting this thing because you and Ryan are very, very close now. And that kind of traveling show where it's kind of like you guys going around and working on other people's projects. Like I'm just so intrigued by that.
I'd love that show to happen. That'd be a fun show.
That'd be great, dude.
And I mean, we were all talking about it like really recently. Michael Golderman, the other writer director, Craig, and all the guys. We were talking like when we get into Retro Freaks 2, let's start the pilot of that because we're already together on set. So let's start like kind of that concept. So we're double booking ourselves to get a couple things accomplished. And I'm so excited for that aspect of our future.
No doubt. Can't wait. Sounds great. Let's do it. I mean, that's that's what it's about. And a lot of people are, on either on the performing side or on the, filmmaking side. Everybody sits around and has ideas. Some are good, some are not good. But you've got to find some way. There's more people sitting around going, boy, I've got a great movie. I want to make it. I just can't put, I was like, you got to make it happen. You got to, and everybody has a tunnel vision of how something gets done. Some people aren't able to, slice and dice and make things happen. But just get out there and make it. There's a way to do it. And the more you talk yourself out of not doing it, because this isn't the optimum way to do this specific thing, you're never going to do anything. You're never going to get it done. And you're just going to sit around and you're going to talk about the same project for the next 5-6 years. Yeah. And
literally why we booked the theater. We had to because
do it.
You were talking about like not really knowing when you were coming in, but no one in the movie knew that. Ed and Greco, like we just sent them an email and we're like, hey, say this on camera.
Yeah.
That's literally how it went. And a lot of the other actors, we were kind of working on a short and we were like, no, let's make this tie into the movie.
Right.
So then all of a sudden we're sending out these premiere invites and they're like, a premiere for what? I'm like, the feature film you're in, dude.
Well, that's a good way to drop it. I also think, with Grego and Ed, and everybody using their space and their channels and their, kind of personalities that people know and follow. That was a great way to incorporate more than just the people on the ground in front of the A camera. To bring in the world, it breaks the fourth wall a little bit, but it doesn't. It brings the audience in. It makes it a little bit more kind of interactive, and we all relate to that. And I thought that aspect, worked really well, which I wasn't prepared for until I saw, the actual screenings, and I thought, seeing all the people that I ended up meeting, on the night of the premiere, but seeing them there and just hearing, what was supposed to happen, and then seeing it come together. It's some fun stuff, and it's a great way to get all everybody involved in it.
Yeah, 100%. Everybody plays, man.
Love it.
Um,
Was there stuff from the chat that we wanted to show, Craig?
well, it's kind of getting late where Mr. Eddie's at, so we do have one last thing though. One last thing. We're gonna do a little rapid fire.
Okay.
Mr. Andre. So, got some questions. All right. So just name or just answer with the first thing that pops into your head. I'll
Okay.
start off.
Uh-oh.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Do you have a favorite Motu character, Masters of the Universe character? If so, who is it?
Manny Faces.
Ooh,
No. All right.
Ooh, okay.
that's a good pick.
That's a good one, dude.
Yeah.
Why do you like Manny Faces?
I think because I did the commercial.
Okay. Makes sense. There you go.
He has many faces.
Many faces.
So, with all the remakes still happening, I mean, Hollywood's out of brand new ideas. Do you think they would bank on making like a sequel to Monster Squad or a remake?
I think
Bringing like Stranger Things and Goonies, all that type of stuff back, because it would actually, kind of work out with what the kids are feeling now.
Mm-hmm.
They did Ghostbusters Afterlife. I mean, it'd be a right down.
It does work. They were actually remaking the Monster Squad for a number of years. Michael Bay's company and Rob Cohen were doing that for years. And then Platinum Dunes announced that they were not doing it because Universal was doing the Dark Universe. And then they all didn't happen. Well, I mean, Dark Universe started with Dracula Untold and then The Mummy, and then they tanked all of it.
Well,
but I think a remake
Dracula
of Monster Squad doesn't work. Yeah, I think a remake of Monster Squad doesn't work because it's inspired so much stuff that we have seen, so that has been rebooted, so to say. And that leaves a sequel. The problem is a lot of people don't make sequels to movies that didn't do well. Again, back with that same argument, but there is an audience there. I do know there have Fred and Shane, when they were making The Predator, the Boyd Holbrook one, Shane directed that and Fred and Shane co-wrote that. And while they were doing that, like New Line was like, do you have a Monster Squad sequel? We'll greenlight it right now. And it ended up being like a rights issue again. And Michael Bay had it in his hand at the time because they were still doing that thing over there. And they were like, no, not with you. Like, it's a whole other thing. And it didn't happen. But, Fred and Shane, I think, have had some meetings, from places like Netflix. And I think one of the, it's been written down and exposed down. I'm not the only one that tells the story, but I think it's fascinating on two things. They sit around and go, okay, so with the popularity of Stranger Things, I think we could do like a Monster Squad world thing and with the kids and fighting like an unknown kind of supernatural thing. And, everybody looks around and goes, it's called Stranger Things. You did it. Like you've done it. And I think Fred one time goes, so wait, let me get this straight. You've seen your own show, Stranger Things, right? Okay. Have you really? Okay. You want me to remake something about something that is kind of a remake of something I already made. And I think everybody should do it just because it'd be fun and, why turn down projects. But, when you're the guy that actually created it all and didn't kind of get that response that you should or want, and then people are asking you to remake something off a remake of something that you did, I can understand where the reticence comes from. But then, one time there was an executive in another meeting. I can't remember what it was. And this story's hilarious. And they're like, okay, so really what it is, it's like 30 years later, the kids are grown up. They come back to their hometown, and then they have to fight the evil that was there before, but they're adults now. So it's different and they got to figure out a way and they have their own issues. And Shane Black goes, yeah, that's it.
Yep.
And the executive goes, yeah, no, that's what we want.
It.
We want the kid. He goes, no, that's it. That's Stephen King's It. It just came out. And so it happens all the time. I love those two stories. But I think a sequel is the answer if you do it, but you got to make it you got to go completely against studio mentality. You have to, if you're doing a sequel to this, you have to make it for the Monster Squad fans. And then hopefully you get others. But studios won't do that. They're like, what's the widest audience we can get? And hopefully we service our original fans and all that Star Wars. But, that would be the way to do a Monster Squad sequel. And
yeah, and even
there's
not
been some
like
great
a
ideas
sequel,
out there.
but playing within that universe,
Oh, I love the universe. The universe is great, and I have one of the best concepts for the universe. If Fred and Shane ever wanted to do it, or someone wanted to do it, and one of my favorite things is, in the crawl, in the Monster Squad, when they say they blew it, we lose that scene. Like, they cut the scene out that explains that, and what it is Van Helsing actually captures Dracula and stakes him, and he gets away. And he gets away because the dead body's in a wagon. They go up to the castle to do the limbo thing, and they leave like a guard, a red shirt, to guard the body. And out of the mist comes 3 vampire brides. And he stands up and shoots one with the crossbow. The other one grabs him. He stabs her with a stake. And then the other one's choking him, and he's flailing around looking for a stake. Now, what this is a setup to Rudy's final action sequence at the end when he kills the vampire bride. It's the exact same scene. We just never got the setup for Rudy's payoff. And he's flailing around by the wagon, finds a stake and kills her and goes, ha ha ha, I made it, I win. But of course, when you unstake a vampire, they come back to life, and he had grabbed the one out of Dracula, and Dracula sits up in the wagon and gets away. So that's how they blew it. My question is what the hell was he doing for 100 years?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see is Dunker in a gear walking around. And I think every episode in a 10 series Netflix show is 1 decade of Dracula walking around Earth doing shit. And, because I used to always joke, it's like, where did Dracula get dynamite from? I was like, he's Dracula. He got it like when they were building the Panama Canal, he like stole it. Or something. It's like, I'd love to see. And then you can almost kind of DC it a little bit, a la Wonder Woman, where in the first one, where like the supernatural aspects of actual world events were bad. It's like, maybe Dracula has a hand in a lot of the bad shit that went on in the last 100 years. That'd be kind of a cool show.
I love it.
That would be dope. That'd be sick.
This next question's really deep, so just brace yourself.
If you could steal a smooch from anyone in Hollywood, no, that's actually not. If you could live in any cartoon universe, what would that be?
Anne Hathaway. Wait, what? Oh, sorry. I thought
that answers both questions.
Yes, it does. Yes. Well, any cartoon universe?
Yeah.
There's a handful, but I think I'm just going to have to go back to my old school show that a lot of people don't know, which was released when I first saw it as G-Force, but was actually part of Battle of the Planets. Okay. And it was kind of like an obscure anime show about a group of kids that were actually kind of dorky kids. And when they morph into their superheroes, they're like birds in space, and they all have like their different personas. I loved this show, so I think I'm going to go with G-Force or Battle of the Planets.
Oh, sorry. We were looking for Heathcliff, actually.
Yes. No, that's yes.
So, like, in my head, I'm much lazier. So I'm like, I think I'd probably just go Simpsons, and because I know they got good TV and shit.
It's nice couch.
Yeah. I almost went with Family Guy, like, but they're so pathetic. Yeah, I'm going to go back I'll go with G-Force Battle of the Planets.
Nice. Yes.
And if you can find that, if anybody has you can't see that show anymore. I've seen like some stuff on it, but I don't know. For some reason, I loved that show.
Yeah, I love that.
Heck yeah. All right.
Masters of the Universe would be cool too, because then I'd be super buff.
Everyone's just jacked immediately.
Jacked, ripped, some kind of powers. If you could live in any sitcom, what show would it be?
I'm going to say something with Bob Newhart, so it doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Greco, what sitcom would you live in?
I wasn't ready for this. I'm not.
Yeah, I know.
The first thing that pops into my head, I don't know. Cheers just popped in, but I don't know why. I have no reason to pick Cheers.
That's a great answer, though.
Just because you know they got beer, dude.
They got beer.
Karaoke night at their bar.
I might join you on that, just because I love going to the same place every day and talking to the same people.
All right. Lastly, if you were to sit down and just write a feature film, a narrative, what genre would it be in?
Ooh.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi?
Be sci-fi. Yeah, it would either be sci-fi or some sort of World War II historical component, and maybe it's both.
Yeah.
But no, I grew up a sci-fi kid. Look, I mean, I did the Monster Squad and a bunch of other stuff, and I kind of it's in the genre world. It's awesome that kind of like your jersey sort of hanging in the rafters of of a certain gym. And that's awesome, and that's certainly something to be appreciative of and to respect. I grew up. I love monster movies, love horror movies, love thrillers, love them all. And but I was a sci-fi kid. I really liked sci-fi, just because it was the kind of like horror. They're very similar because the limits are your imagination. Which means there are no limits of what you can do in sci-fi. But now in sci-fi, you almost got to kind of keep your limits of what things look like, sound like, can do, or do, but they're kind of constrained by the bounds of known science at the time or theoretical science at the time. And, that's kind of cool. You're like, oh, can this happen? Like, oh, this can happen. But what would happen if we did go here? Or, of course, we all want to have a teleporter and do like this or travel at warp speed. And I just loved all that. Even the old stuff from, The Day the Earth Stood Still to Forbidden Planet, Lost in Space. It's not sci-fi. It's sci-fi and a creature feature is Land of the Lost.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And so that's that show is so bad and yet one of the best things ever put on film.
Exactly, dude.
Because it brings a lot of stuff in that we won't even get into the reptilian fourth dimension, but it's stuff like that, and it's fascinating, and that's all sci-fi to me, and adventure, and I love spaceships, and that's why Star Wars was great, but Star Trek's just as intriguing, and I kind of have a foot in both camps, when it comes to that. But yeah, probably sci-fi.
Oh, yes, that
Right
is
on, dude.
awesome, Andre. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can everybody find you at socials, and what's coming up next?
Well, you got to go see, you got to, get your hands on Retro Freaks, the movie, and hashtag Kill Evil on 3.
I was going to say, there's a lot of comments on my end over here saying Kill Evil on 3.
Got to. That's my.
Yeah.
I'll be wearing the shirt. At Andre Gower on Twitter, the Twiddle. I started a new thing. And Andre Gower official on the Instagram. Those are my only two socials. But follow at the Squad Doc if you're interested in Wolfman's Got Nards or watching the trailer or finding out where you can see it. It's currently playing on Tubi and on Pluto TV if you like that. If you like ad-supported AVOD, which is amazing. Love Pluto TV, by the way. I give them a shout out every time. There's a whole Jeopardy channel, so you can watch Jeopardy 24 hours a day. And just kind of out and about. You could find me breaking stories with Henry McComas at the Sharkies in LA, or you can find me on a golf course. So we're probably in an airport somewhere traveling.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can do this again, and hopefully we'll be talking a little more about Retro Freaks 2.
Ooh,
we will. But I will be in touch very soon.
Kill more evil on 3.
The most evil we can.
That's the third one, Dave. Don't give it away.
All right, guys. Well, chat. Thank you for being here today and joining us. Make sure you follow at Greco Fabulous, at Ed's Retro Geek Out, at Back Alley Toys, and Mr. Andre Gower. Guys, thank you so much. Until next time, peace.
Bye.